Hi guys, my name is Joe and welcome to my channel, Fighting Words, the Martial Arts Library. And today is one of our monthly Tangent Tuesday segments. So on Tangent Tuesdays, which is the second Tuesday of every month, I take a martial arts related topic and I just start riffing on it. So the topic for today is, should we do away with martial arts styles? Um, the reason I'm approaching this is because I see a lot of people getting caught up in this idea of styles, this sort of tribalism of, you know, this is my thing and it holds the solution to every possible problem, so why should I bother learning anything else? Um, or just, ragging on someone from a different style or even a different lineage of the same style. See that a lot. Styles separate people. Now, it must be acknowledged right off the bat, this is never going to happen. You are never going to eliminate the concept of styles from martial arts. As long as humanity exists, we're going to have styles. But let's talk about why it's bad to have them. Um, all the reasons I just named. One of the examples right off the bat that comes to my mind is there was a tryout for an MMA promotion about 13 or 14 years ago. And one of the participants in that tryout got some airtime because, they were taking people through some basic skills challenges. They had one guy holding up the Thai pads and like, okay, let's see how your round kick works. This guy's response was, I don't throw round kicks. I'm a Wing Chun man. And he would not participate in this simple task of throw your leg into the pads. And the guy basically had a meltdown. You can find it online. He got to the point he was screaming, I was born a Wing Chun man and I'll die a Wing Chun man. Here's news. No one was born a Wing Chun man or a Wing Chun woman or a karate man or a Muay Thai man or whatever, right? Like, we can get into reasons why people may gravitate to certain martial arts and, how genetically they may have skills that can be accentuated from participating in certain martial arts, but you're not limited to participating in one single martial art because of how you were born, right? That's a dumb attitude to have. But this guy had it because he was just consumed by, again, this tribalism, this idea. This is my favorite thing, and I will devote myself to it, and I will represent it as truly as I can to my own personal detriment. And I've seen it again in the last couple of weeks. It's a certain style. I'm not going to call it out, but I have seen two participants, two exponents, two instructors actually of that particular style demonstrate or talk about defenses against a leg tackle, a double leg takedown, or a single leg takedown in one case. And it is very clear that they do not understand how takedowns work. But when confronted with, I don't think you know what you're talking about, I don't think you are adequately preparing for this particular event, it doesn't look like you understand how this happens, the response is, well, you just don't understand my style. Even though in one particular case, it's like, no, what you're showing is grappling. You're showing to like brace against the takedown and then wrap up the head and go for a neck crank. But you're doing it all wrong. And it's, again, this notion of, I belong to this style or that style, and I see someone, here's a problem. Here's a problem presented by, people who enact violence, whether, they are trained fighters or not. And I'm going to search within my particular set of knowledge to try to find a solution to this. Now, honestly, I find the cornerstone of that to be good and admirable. Let me see what I bring to the table that can solve this problem. However, what I don't admire is that that's as far as it goes. The problem is they are so tied into this idea. This is my style, and I must devote myself to this style, and this style is going to give me all the information I need about all facets of martial arts. And they don't go outside of that. And, in this case, go to the specialists. Here's the thing. If you want to know what the best defenses against single and double leg takedowns are, talk to wrestlers, because they spend more time defending against single and double leg takedowns than anyone else. And they do it not needing to rely on pain techniques or weird things like that. Like, it's all mechanically based. If I do this thing, the guy will be unable to pick up my leg. Takedown, defense accomplished, right? Similarly, if somebody is thinking about knife defense, talk to somebody who's good at using a knife, who has studied the use of a knife. The Filipino martial arts are famous for that. You also have other exponents. You got Tanto Jutsu. You get some blade work in Silat. You have like Western military combatives comes to mind. There are other people who know this stuff. And if you have a background that doesn't include a lot of use of the knife, but you're bound to determine, like, I'm going to down block so hard that it'll knock the knife out of his hand, I think perhaps an experienced knife fighter would say, I don't think that's going to happen. So, again, people are getting so caught up in this is the thing that I do, and this is the only thing that I do, that they are ultimately harming themselves by not exploring what other people know. And that's not even getting into the stupid lineage wars, which is, we are better than they are because our teacher was different. Like, come on, man. Like, if you go on enough martial arts forums, you are going to hear the term, that's not real insert martial arts here. That's not real Krav Maga or Jeet Kune Do or, Wing Chun Kung Fu or real ninjutsu, whatever you want to pick. And real has more to do in those discussions with who so-and-so's teacher is. The placement of their hand is, 2 degrees off the way a real practitioner of this martial art would place their hand in that situation. It's silly and stupid. And it's interesting, my primary background, my original background was karate, and I've continued to explore it, even though I've branched out into other things. But it's interesting to me, the more I get into the history of karate, like, the concept of style pretty much didn't exist until roughly the 20th century in karate. Up until that point, that people were doing more or less the same thing, except slight variations of it. That's why there's like 4 major kata throughout styles. I mean, I'm making an educated guess. Please don't take that as a hard and fast fact. But there are like a certain number of style or of kata that are common throughout styles, and everybody does it a little bit differently. That's because the founders of those styles were compatriots usually. They practiced with one another. One guy decided he liked to do this move this way in this kata, and this other guy decided he liked to do it slightly differently. So when there was no concept of style, everybody trained together and everybody was allowed to have their own personal growth, you know. And I don't see how that's a bad thing, right? Now, obviously, it would be unfair for me to not present reasons why I think the concept of styles is also beneficial. First things first is for the continued preservation of something that is culturally important. And I was actually listening to an interview with Michelle Manu today. She practices a Hawaiian martial art called Lua. And hearing her process of being inducted into the training circle and sort of the gravitas of, my teacher made it clear that he wanted some of us to continue to spread this because this was, an important part of our culture and we had to continue to make it living and, not let it dissipate, and I know, in China there are various village styles, and in Japan, there are a lot of family styles. And if we did away with the concept of style, then the particular heritage of these places and these people suddenly doesn't exist anymore. So, preservation of a culturally significant activity, I'm totally on board with that. I'm 100% behind that. What I'm really getting at is that if the practical side of martial arts is your jam, if you are interested in the best way to do X, Y, Z, then it is a mistake to confine yourself to, I'm going to do it exactly the way I was taught by this one guy. And it's theoretically, if you get in deep into martial arts, it's theoretically been passed down that way for ages and ages and ages. If you find yourself so confined to that, again, take what you know and try to explore different options when they come up. Again, I'm all on board with that, but the idea that I must not learn anything from any source outside of my style, that can literally get you killed. And in the cases of these gentlemen, what they are teaching is not going to be effective against somebody who knows what they are doing when it comes to, for instance, double leg defense. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. And it all comes from a place of willful ignorance. I have decided that because I'm going to isolate myself within this style, I'm not going to look at how the people who are actually good at this move do this move, or how they would defend against it. So yeah, if you want to understand the best way to do XYZ, knife fighting, best method of punching people, best method of, breaking out of holds, whatever, then you cannot be content to confine yourself to, teacher said this and I'm going to believe it 100%. I'm lucky that I have had teachers who have said, please question everything that I do. Go out and test it yourself. And I have, and as far as martial arts go, I'm a bit of a mutt. Started with karate, expanded into grappling and, boxing and Jeet Kune Do and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and just, because I'm looking for the best solution to get home with all my teeth intact. And I don't care what label goes on that, So it is my hope for you, if you are interested in the practical side of martial arts, that you have an open mind and you do not get locked into this nonsense of, I have to keep doing the same thing over and over and over again because sensei said so. And you actively seek out experts in their fields, and you keep an open mind, and you find a way to test what you are learning. That's a bit of a deeper tangent that I'm not going to get into right now. But yes, it's important to find a way to pressure test the things that you are learning. And that's part of the reason why I expanded beyond my original learning, because I learned some of the things that I was learning didn't work as they were advertised. And I needed to come up with different approaches, new training methods, and start adding things that I didn't have. So I think most open-minded martial artists have had that experience. Bearing in mind that as I have grown as a martial artist, I can sometimes come back to like, oh, this section in that kata, I can see how it's sort of analogous to, this movement in Panantukan, or whatever. Like, oh, I understand. I can take this and use this. But also, I wouldn't be able to use it if I hadn't been exposed to the other material. So yeah, go out there, keep an open mind. Don't get stuck in one lane. One of my favorite expressions, it's talking about karate, but it could mean martial arts. It's from one of Mark Bishop's books. He went to Okinawa, still is there actually. But he interviewed a bunch of Okinawan masters, and one of them said, if you only study one style, then you are sitting at a table with 4 corners, but you can only see one corner. You can't see the other 3 corners. And that's basically martial arts in a nutshell. Unless you get outside of your style, the thing that you practiced for years, you don't know what you don't know. So get out there, absorb everything. This is the best time to be alive as a martial artist. There are more public martial arts schools than ever. There's YouTube, there's numerous books that I'm reviewing a lot of. You have access to more martial arts material. You have access to, more criminal history stuff. If you're interested in self-defense, we have more CCTV footage than ever of violent crimes being committed, police reports. If you are interested in using martial arts as a means for, physical exploration, we know more about sports science and kinesiology and all that stuff than ever before. This is the best time to be alive as a martial artist, if you are open to learning and absorbing all this stuff. So I think I'm going to come to an end right there, because I'm getting on too much of a tangent and getting away from my original point. But yeah, study as many martial arts as you possibly have access to. It will help you grow as a martial artist. That's all I got. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll do it again next month.